After getting pregnant, I could hear the thoughts of the baby inside me. Just as I was happily preparing to share the good news of my pregnancy with my parents, Waylon Jones and Audrey Jones, the baby inside me suddenly cried out for help. She said, "Mom, don't call. Grandpa and Grandma value boys over girls. If they find out I'm a girl, they'll definitely give you abortion pills. I really want to live." I turned off my phone in confusion, afraid that news of my pregnancy might get out. But that night, my house caught fire. I missed 99 distress calls from Waylon and Audrey. In the end, they could only helplessly perish in the flames. I was deeply heartbroken, and my husband, Theodore Carter, stayed by my side through those darkest days. Just as I was preparing to pull myself together, my daughter's voice from inside me came through again. She said, "Mom, you're so pitiful. Dad is secretly meeting his lover at the company. He's only being up ruining a company contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars." Theodore was deeply disappointed in me and then brought out divorce papers, forcing me to sign them. I desperately tried to keep him, and then I heard my daughter's voice again. She said, "Dad hates women who keep pestering him. Mom, if you let go in time, Dad will come back begging for you after a while. Mom, don't be foolish. Leaving without taking any property during the divorce is the best choice." In the end, I listened to my daughter and chose to leave the marriage without taking any property. But when I became very poor and had to sleep on the streets, Theodore quickly married a girl who looked 70% like me. Moreover, at his wedding, every word he said blamed me for leaving so heartlessly back then. I cried as I went to find Theodore, but I was shattered by a red light running truck. As I was dying, I vaguely heard my daughter's laughter. But even until my death, I couldn't understand why my daughter wanted to harm me. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I found out I was pregnant. The doctor happily patted my shoulder and said, "Ms. Jones, congratulations. Your 38th IVF attempt has finally succeeded. Quickly call your family to share the good news." But I stood there frozen like a stone. I was reborn, back to the day I just found out I was pregnant. I reached out with trembling hands, covering my lower abdomen with my palm, cold sweat covering my forehead. Sure enough, just as I expected, the next second, I clearly heard the voice of the child in my belly. She said, "Mom, please don't call Grandpa and Grandma. They value boys over girls. If they find out I'm a girl, they'll definitely give you abortion pills. I really want to live." I held my phone tightly, not rushing to make a decision. I clenched my fists, trying to calm my emotions, but my voice still trembled badly. I said, "I want to abort this child." Hearing my words, the doctors who were just congratulating me all froze in place. They knew how much I had suffered to get pregnant and never thought I would say something like this. A doctor patted my shoulder heavily and said, "Ms. Jones, this pregnancy might be your only chance in life to have a child. You have a body that's very difficult to conceive. You must think it through carefully." His words shattered my firm decision to have an abortion. In 6 whole years, I underwent 38 IVF treatments and endured hardships most people couldn't bear, just to finally conceive the child I always wanted. Should I really give up now? That moment of weakness left me without the courage to say, "I want an abortion" again. I comforted myself, thinking the voice I heard was just a hallucination caused by too much stress, or that as long as I ignored the child's thoughts, those terrible things wouldn't happen later. Because I couldn't make up my mind to have an abortion, I felt uneasy all along. Thinking about what was supposed to happen tonight in my previous life, I immediately called Waylon and Audrey to confirm their safety. After learning I was carrying a girl, they showed no sign of dislike. Instead, they were very happy and repeatedly reminded me to take care of myself. However, their passing in the previous life left a deep shadow on me, so I still couldn't feel at ease. After leaving the hospital, I immediately drove to Waylon and Audrey's house. As long as I don't follow my daughter's thoughts, I definitely won't repeat the tragedy of my past life. After seeing Waylon and Audrey, I immediately checked for any gas leaks in the house, turned off all potential fire sources, and even took away all the lighters and fireworks. Only then did I feel relieved. The daughter in my belly kept urging me through her inner voice to leave quickly, worried that if I stayed overnight at Waylon and Audrey's house, they might secretly give me abortion pills. However, I pretended not to hear and insisted on staying at Waylon and Audrey's house for one night before leaving. Just when I had a peaceful night's sleep, thinking things would turn out differently, the same fire as in my past life still happened. Waylon and Audrey set up a charcoal grill in the yard early in the morning, saying they had to make my favorite charcoal grilled ribs. However, the grill was accidentally knocked over, many burning coals scattered on the ground, instantly igniting an unstoppable fire. I desperately tried to save Waylon and Audrey, who had difficulty moving. But in the end, because I was too weak, I could only watch them perish in the fire. I couldn't understand why, despite my efforts to avoid everything from the previous life, Waylon and Audrey still ended up painfully dying in front of me because of my stubbornness. I thought, if I hadn't stayed here for the night, would Mom and Dad still be alive? I was in deep pain, blaming myself for everything. I started becoming depressed, anxious, and easily irritable like in my previous life. Theodore still took care of me attentively, just like before. I knew I couldn't stay down like in my previous life, so I quickly adjusted my mood this time. I no longer held Theodore back at work. Instead, I offered to join his company and help ease his burden. But the voice of my daughter in my belly still didn't stop. She said, "Mom, you're so pitiful, doing housework and working at the same time. But Dad can shamelessly have an affair at the office. Mom, if you just go upstairs to the conference room, you can catch them in the act." My daughter in my belly pretended to feel sorry for me while repeatedly urging me to go upstairs, but I felt no emotion at all and just let out a cold laugh. I would never be foolish again and ruin my marriage. I didn't take a single word she said to heart. I sat coldly in the office with no intention of getting up to catch anyone and continued focusing on my work. A few hours later, people gradually came out of the conference room. Theodore happily signaled to me that the contract had been finalized. Looking at Theodore, who was full of love for me, my tense heart gradually relaxed. In this life, I didn't lose my temper or cause trouble. I finally preserved my happy marriage. Over the next month, my daughter in my belly kept urging me to catch someone cheating. I ignored it all. Just as I was relieved that I had changed my life, Theodore and I argued again. To avoid the cheating time my daughter mentioned, I always deliberately delayed going upstairs, not wanting to run into Theodore. However, I delayed submitting an urgent contract, causing Theodore's nearly finalized deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars to be canceled. Once again, I caused a huge loss to the company and became the culprit in the entire company. The employees called me an idiot, saying I forced them to quit and look for new jobs. Theodore also blamed me. You don't take your work seriously, that's why such a big mistake happened. Every time I ask you to work in the meeting room, you keep making excuses. You haven't shown any sincerity to me or this company. Now with this outcome, are you satisfied? I've had enough of you. Let's get a divorce. I completely broke down and my inner defenses were utterly shattered. I was desperately trying to avoid what happened in my past life, but in the end, I still caused the company to lose a lot of money for other reasons, making Theodore disappointed in me and asking for a divorce. It feels like all my efforts are a joke, and everything happens one after another, like a pre-written script beyond my control. When I received the divorce agreement Theodore handed me, my heart ached so much that I trembled all over. This is the last chance to decide my fate. This time, I must hold on tightly. I said to Theodore, I don't agree to the divorce. Theodore, no matter what difficulties the company faces, I can go through them with you. Divorce won't solve everything. We have feelings for each other, and there's a baby about to be born. Can you give me one more chance to make things right? The daughter in my belly was still shouting, Mom, don't say that. Dad despises women who lower themselves like this. Just choose to leave without taking any property and go. Dad will definitely regret it and beg you to come back crying. I clenched my teeth and firmly ignored her inner voice. Sure enough, after I asked him to stay, Theodore didn't leave heartlessly like in the previous life. I know Theodore didn't cheat at all. He wants a divorce just because he's sulking with me. I started working harder, putting all my energy into the company and Theodore. I know I caused huge losses to the company, so I tried everything to make up for it. I kept promoting the company, actively putting Theodore on TV, and worked hard to boost the company's visibility. Sure enough, with my efforts, the company's revenue skyrocketed. But no matter how hard I tried to stop bad things from happening, fate still unfolded as destined. Theodore attended a talk show. The production team deliberately used misleading editing to make Theodore's relationship with another female guest seem ambiguous. This led to fierce online criticism of Theodore, and the company's shares plummeted. In the end, only a fake divorce between Theodore and me could save this crisis. I had no choice, and just like last time, signed the divorce agreement. To silence the media, I moved out overnight and stopped contacting Theodore. But on the day we agreed to remarry, Theodore never showed up to see me. I was very nervous. At that moment, I heard my daughter's inner voice again. She said, Dad is now getting ready to marry another woman. Mom, if you have any self-respect left, you should take me far away. I don't want a dad like that. If you humbly go back to beg him, I won't acknowledge you as my mom anymore. Hearing the news that Theodore was preparing to remarry, my mind went blank. Reason told me I should quickly pull myself out of this relationship, but instinctively, I wanted to do the opposite of what my daughter said. Without hesitation, I hailed a cab and went straight to Theodore's wedding venue. Just 2 months ago, I still had a happy family and marriage. But ever since I got pregnant, Waylon and Audrey died, and the man who once promised to love me forever is now marrying another woman. I know I might not escape the same fate of death as in my past life, but still, I want to make one last struggle. At the wedding venue, Theodore looked at me with disgust. He said, I hate women who cling. You have no dignity. It's disgusting. I already have the woman I love. How long are you going to keep pestering me? Every word from Theodore was like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart. I opened my mouth but could only shake my head helplessly. I wanted to ask him why my life felt like a pre-written script, why all my efforts seemed useless like a joke. I don't want to die, nor do I want to follow the path fate has already arranged. Just as the moment of my death in the previous life was approaching, the woman who married Theodore suddenly turned her head and gave me a deep look. In an instant, I was shocked to the point of feeling numb. I finally understood why I could hear my daughter's inner voice.